Hello everyone, and welcome to the Captora webinar, New Techniques and Technologies to Grow Pipeline Faster. My name is Sandra Freeman, and I'm your moderator for this webinar. Today we have fast-paced and informative presentations that will provide you with specific methods and tools to help you grow your sales pipeline faster. Before we get started on the presentations, I do have a few key points to help you get the most out of today's webinar. First of all, yes, we are recording this webinar, and a link to the recording along with a link to the slides will be emailed to you after the event. And if you have questions, please post them in the chat box at the bottom of your screen, and we will have a Q&A session at the end of the webinar. Please help us make these webinars better. You'll see a short survey that pops up at the end of the event, and we'd love to hear your feedback. Also, the event hashtag is MKTGTech. Again, that's MKTGTech. So be sure and share your comments and insights. And now on to our speakers. We have two great speakers today. Paul Albright is the CEO and founder of Captora. Paul brings marketing and sales expertise at some of the Silicon Valley's most innovative market-creating companies, including Marketo, SuccessFactors, NetApp, and Informatica. And we are also pleased to feature John Miller, VP and co-founder at Marketo. John is a speaker and writer with expertise in marketing best practices and is the author of multiple definitive guides, including marketing automation, engaging email marketing, and marketing metrics and analytics. So without further ado, I'd like to pass the baton to Paul Albright, the CEO of Captora.
Great. Thank you, Sandra. Appreciate it. Well, welcome to Captora's webinar. I'm very excited to team up with John Miller again on today's webinar. John and I have been fortunate to be in the situation to meet and share best practices with literally thousands of the world's most innovative marketing execs. And today you're going to hear the latest and greatest about what's changing in marketing, but on also new techniques and technologies to grow your pipeline from inbound marketing. The first thing I wanted to hit on was what are the priorities that are facing marketing as we go forward. This was a study that Marketo and The Economist did that just came out in 2015. And the question was, what will be your top areas of investment over the next 12 months? Number one is a shift to digital marketing and engagement, as well as, if you look down the list here, how do we do a better job of acquiring customers, and what programs work best in order to drive up marketing ROI. So these are the top priorities facing modern marketers today. And if you boil them down into key marketing initiatives, what are the priorities facing digital marketers today? I've seen four. Number one is an insane focus on revenue growth. And in SaaS businesses, that means ARR, or annual recurring revenue growth. Number two is to set goals and definitions across marketing, tie compensation to it, and make sure that you're driving revenue effectively. And I'll go through some specifics around that as we walk through the slides here. Number three is to build marketing outside in. And what I mean by that is to first figure out what are your inbound strategies as they're tied to the marketing mix by channel, and then what content do you have that you can promote in order to drive up conversion rates across your different marketing programs. And then fourth is to improve your website reach and power. And the point here is that most companies' websites have been created in the past in order to expand brand, but don't do a great job of expanding your reach to new buyers. And there's a lot of new technologies out there to help your website be more productive. And one way of measuring that is your Alexa ranking. Are you improving your Alexa ranking over time? And how many of your new leads are coming from inbound pipeline that's being generated through your digital marketing programs? So the point about revenue growth is a whopper. One of the things that I learned at Marketo was that if your marketing team does a better job of qualifying your leads and going deeper into the pipeline so that sales reps are spending a higher percentage of their time converting deals versus qualifying deals, then you'll make a bigger impact to CAC. And so I'll tell a quick story here. In the 1990s, to me, that was the first generation of the SaaS sales and marketing model. and it was sales constrained. A lot of it was to hire a ton of account executives and have them focus on qualifying leads and owning more of the pipeline. And in the success factors and Salesforce era, my inside sales reps held a quota of about $750,000 in ARR, and we achieved about a 30 to 40% attainment rate of that quota. And marketing was only producing about 30 to 40% of the pipeline. Our CAC, our cost of new customer acquisition, was about 0.5 to 0.8. Then move forward a decade into the 2000s, and at Marketo, our inside sales reps were holding a $1.2 million quota, and marketing was contributing 70 to 80% of the pipeline, and our CAC was 1.25 to 1.8. Today, I think you can leverage new technologies in order to get the CAC up another level of performance, up to about 2 to 2.5. The point is that marketing has to take on a lot more responsibility for going deeper into the pipeline. And that's where I want to drill into this a little bit further. If we look at the growth and productivity challenge that faces marketing today, the key is to show what is the total sales and total marketing spend versus ARR to produce CAC. Historically, the SaaS average was about 0.85, which is the dotted line on the graph here. But at Marketo, we've oscillated between about 1.25 and about 1.8. The key is to manage the marketing spend against the sales spend and to show productivity increasing over time. So how do we go do that? Well, the first step is to agree on marketing's contribution to pipeline goals, or the growth, the overall revenue growth of the company. So this is an example. There are 4 buckets that increase pipeline driven from marketing. It's inbound, outbound, teleprospecting, and referral. And then sales would own a level of the pipeline, or some percent of contribution to the pipeline as well. And you can see here an example that if a company has an SMB focus or a velocity sales force, as well as an enterprise or more traditional outside sales force, this example shows that marketing is responsible for contributing 80% of the pipeline for SMB sales. Sales would own 20%, and enterprise 70%, sales would own 30% in the enterprise area. And then you break that down into that 80% for SMB as an example. 50% comes from inbound for SMB, 25% outbound, 0% teleprospecting, 5% referral. These numbers are going to change depending on your style of business. But the point is that marketing and sales and the CEO need to agree on the percent contribution to pipeline, and then that's going to work backwards into the numbers that are the goal for demand gen to produce number of leads, number of contacts, number of opportunities each month for the different business units. And then obviously this can expand to international, et cetera. So if you agree on this step first, that tells you how much should you spend in each of these different areas, and then what kind of campaigns should you run to do the best job of contributing new pipeline, and then how to measure your success going forward. The constraint that we saw in the past has been, how many demand gen people can you hire, and what does their productivity look like? How many programs are they able to manage? And that's the constraint right now in digital marketing, is how many digital marketing campaigns can a marketer manage? So if you think about that for a minute, if I asked each of you, how many digital campaigns is your company running today across the inbound channels? And then how many marketers are responsible for identifying which campaigns to run, for creating and launching them, and then optimizing those digital campaigns across SEM and SEO channels? And what's interesting is that in asking that question to a couple hundred companies over the last few months, the average is 5 to 15 digital campaigns per person. And the first question that comes back is, what do you mean by a digital campaign? Well, a digital campaign is a search phrase, a pain statement, or keyword, and then that's matched with a very specific landing page. And that landing page would have an exact match between the title, the subtitle would support the title, and then the CTA and content on that landing page would support the search phrase or pain statement that the new buyer would be clicking through to find your company. And so in the past, I've seen maybe 5, at the most 15 digital campaigns could be managed per digital marketer. And I think in the future we're going to see that that's going to raise up because of technology advancements to literally a digital marketing person can manage hundreds of campaigns. And that's one of the things we're already starting to see in our customer base. The other aspect to think about is roles and goals. So if you think about the marketing funnel, one of the things that we learned over the past few years is that if everybody plays their own role, then you're going to have a lot more success if they know exactly what to work on, how their compensation supports the goals, and then when they convert to another stage of the funnel, the person accepting it has an SLA, a service level agreement about what's coming over to them. So if you look at this funnel definition, marketing is playing the role from generating awareness to then creating contacts or names. Once that name is understood, you go from being an anonymous buyer to a contact name, then you can be converted into a lead. A lead is then scored, and you should be going into a nurturing program. Your lead should be going into a nurturing program. And that's when SDRs, or some companies call them BDRs, would be monitoring those leads and starting to spend time with those prospects to turn them into sales qualified leads, or what a lot of companies call opportunities. And this is where marketing is owning more and more of the pipeline. So you can see here, what I'm used to is that the marketing team would be split between demand gen and the SDRs. Demand gen owns engaging anonymous buyers and their ability to find your company, then converting them into leads or names people, and then those would get converted into leads and then passed into your marketing automation system. So those, once they're in the marketing automation system, the SDRs, sales development reps, would monitor them, and they would get converted into opportunities. A little error here. Can you hear me okay, Sandra?
You bet. You sound great.
Okay. I got a little network connection here, so hold on a second here. Okay. So then once the SDRs identify them as opportunities, then the sales reps would take them and convert them. And just to give you a few handy metrics, what we've seen is that organic campaigns historically should be converting at about a 3 to 5% rate blended. SEM we see at around a 5% conversion rate. And then I'm going to step through a little bit more of the math of the business here. But the key is that demand gen should be measured on number of contacts and number of leads created, the quality of those leads as well. And then the SDRs are measured on the conversion rate from lead to opportunity. And then when sales accepts the opportunity, then the SDR gets compensated for creating that op. And then your sales conversion rate from accepted opportunity to closing should be well north of 50%. And every company is a little bit different on the speed that you go through this process. But the key is that you need to make sure that every handoff from demand gen or digital marketer to SDRs, there's a quality metric and there's a speed and velocity metric that takes place during that handoff, as well from an SDR to sales. So for example, when the SDR hands over to an AE or a sales rep, the idea is that the sales rep has 24 hours to then qualify that opportunity. And then at least in the past, in a velocity model, the sales rep would have 3 to 4 calls on that opportunity, and in about 30 days, that opportunity should close to a new book customer. And then I would tie compensation in digital marketing as well as the SDRs to the output. How many leads come from digital marketing? And that would be attached to the variable compensation. And then for SDRs, their variable compensation tied to opportunities accepted by sales. To go a little bit deeper into this, the key is to then create a math of marketing. And the importance of this is to know at every step, understanding your business and the conversion rates from names, whether they're unpaid or paid, how they convert to prospects, what is the conversion rate, what's the cost blended, and then from there to leads, to opportunities, and to customers. What are the conversion rates? How much time does it take? And by tracking these simple steps, you're going to build a huge amount of credibility inside your company with your CEO and with your finance folks as well as your ops people. And this gives you a much better idea of your business. And you can break this down by segment, whether it's a velocity part of the business or it's a more enterprise style. so that you can constantly improve and measure off of that and give everybody more confidence to invest in marketing. The other piece of this that's important is understanding the technology stack. And so our customers are using Salesforce as their CRM, and that's the system of record for customers. Then using Marketo and others for marketing automation, and Captora at the top of the funnel. So Captora's focus is to find what used to be anonymous buyers, and your digital marketing folks can leverage Captora to increase substantially the number of digital campaigns that are out there working to engage those new buyers, and then automate the process of passing those off to marketing automation for scoring, nurturing, and turning them into customers. We do that in 3 steps. Number 1 is our demand analyzer, and Captora's demand analyzer assesses buyer behavior across digital demand segments like Google, Yahoo, Bing, Twitter, Facebook, etc., compares the buyer's intent and the signals that we're seeing out there with what your competitors are doing. That gives the marketer the information they need to prioritize what campaigns to work on, and that leads to the second step, which is the campaign engine. So Captora's campaign engine automates the process of creating a highly tuned campaign landing page with the right title, subtitle, CTA, and automatically engages that landing page with your marketing automation system. So we use your template and your forms so that when someone comes through to the Captora-generated landing page, they automatically convert, get passed into marketing automation, and you speed the process. And then leveraging our big data backend, our performance advisor has the ability to do time series measuring of your campaigns and to report back on how your campaigns are doing by persona, by stage of interest, and also to report on what content's working the best. So that the result is, over time, we're able to roll out and measure organic as well as paid campaigns. And what this is a picture of is the different strategy of how you manage your paid search versus organic search campaign. Because what we're shifting to now is companies doing a much better job of leveraging multiple channels with the same marketing people. So you're able to launch paid search and organic search campaigns at the same time and learn from both. Paid search campaigns, the strategy is optimization. So leveraging technologies to increase conversion rates, and if you put a goal on it, as an example, 30% increase in conversion rate for paid search, that'll generate more leads and improve your CAC. And then on organic search, the challenge is an expansion one. So a goal of, say, expanding your website reach by launching 700 organic campaigns and associated new landing pages over the next few months will dramatically increase your ability to engage new buyer pools, and you'll learn what keywords and pain statements work best, and then that'll drive your content investment strategy, and then that could also help you to uncover new paid search terms that you could go acquire for a lesser price because they're less contested. And then over time, you can start to build out your goals. How much pipeline goal comes from each of the different campaigns, and then what would your CPL targets look like, and then where do you want to get your CPL targets to? We've seen customers, one of our customers in particular had a $140 CPL rate when we started to work with them, and then leveraging Captora, they got their cost per lead down below $50 per lead. I also included into this deck the top 10 digital marketing metrics that I've learned over the years. And we're not going to have time to go through all these right now, but I wanted to make sure that they were in the deck so that when we share the deck with you, you'll have them. But these are the key metrics that I think all digital marketers should be focusing in on. And then building a simple report that can be shared with your CEO and execs and team. If you watch this and improve on these metrics every step of the way, you'll clearly improve CAC, but you'll also be able to justify more investments and be able to hire more people and use more money effectively within your company. Kind of expectations to set. We've seen through our customers, this is one example, ServiceMac, leveraging Captora, they saw a 300% increase in conversion rate. They launched over 800 organic campaigns without hiring any additional digital marketing people. And then in paid search, that increase in conversion, which you'll see at the top there, about a 300% increase, or 3.4 even in Q1, which is 340% increase in conversion rate, generated millions of dollars of new pipeline, but also a tremendous number of new closed deals. And so that not only helped them to grow faster, but also showed them which new markets to double down on and what search terms were going to work the best. And you're able to see that with a lot more specifics with all those campaigns working for you. So that's the first part of our presentation. I want to hand over to John for now, and we'll come back over and close up afterwards. But very excited again to be teaming up with John. I'll hand over to him to tell the Marketo story. John?
Great. Thank you, Paul, and hello, everyone. Excited to be here. What I am going to cover is first, a little bit about how we at Marketo have been implementing some of the strategies and tactics that Paul's just covered, and then I'm going to kind of, go back around and really spend some time on the measurement and metrics associated with all these new digital tactics and strategies. So I'll take about 20 minutes or so. Before I get into the meat of it, let me just spend a little bit longer introducing me and sort of why I'm relevant to the situation, perhaps. First and foremost, as Paul said, I am one of the co-founders of Marketo. I'm also a father. The fun fact and why they go connected is because my son, Beckett, who's the one on the right, was born the same month that we incorporated Marketo. And so it's made it really easy for me to keep track of how old the company is. It's been a little over 9 years at this point. Another fun fact is that I was born in Africa. When I was, at the time when I was born there, it was in Ethiopia. Post-Civil War, where I was born, is actually now part of Eritrea. Whenever people hear this fact, I always get the same question, which is, so why were you born in Ethiopia? And I always give the same answer, which is I wanted to be close to my parents. Pause for laughter. Anyway, so that has nothing to do with marketing, but of more relevance to this topic of digital marketing is the fact that I studied physics for my undergraduate degree. Spent my summers doing fusion research at Lawrence Livermore National Lab, and almost went to MIT for a PhD program, but instead kind of pivoted off into this business world and marketing. And 20-odd years later, I don't regret that fact, and then I studied physics, because I think it is the quantitative analytical mindset that I learned that has helped me to be the marketer I am today. So that's the background on me. Let's get into kind of the Marketo and how we're doing marketing at Marketo. Paul showed you what we call a revenue cycle earlier. And these are the stages of the Marketo revenue cycle. At the highest level, Paul talked about ownership at different stages between marketing and sale and SDRs and sales. I want to talk about the funnel in three major buckets represented by tofu, mofu, and bofu. Tofu stands for top of the funnel. And at Marketo, we always like to talk about how we don't want our tofu to be bland. So we're going to run interesting campaigns to build awareness and generate new leads. Middle of the funnel is how we are taking the folks that we know but aren't yet ready to buy, and nurturing those relationships until they are sales ready. And then bofu represents when sales is actually engaged. Let's talk about each of these in conjunction, starting with top of the funnel. I find that perhaps the most interesting way to show you what's working for Marketo top of the funnel is to actually show our specific numbers and our specific metrics. So this is our real data. And what we're showing is how we're generating top-of-the-funnel targets across various channels. You see how many targets we generate from each channel. You see what we're investing per target that we generate. And then to provide some additional context, I'm also showing the percentage of targets that become opportunities in a 12-month period. And then I'm using the index column to show how those percent opportunities relate to each other. So it's the same number as percent opportunity, just scaled to an average of 1. And lastly, I'm showing the average time it takes for a target from that channel to turn to an opportunity. So you can look at the data and you see, a bunch of different insights channel by channel. I want to highlight two things. The first is just how important content is to the top of the funnel. I've marked all the channels that use content with a check mark. And so you see the vast majority of our target generation and, frankly, of our best targets are coming from a channel where the reason why we get somebody's contact information is primarily related to our content on our thought leadership. So success in this digital age at its core, I believe, does come from having a quality content engine. The second thing I want to highlight is, anybody looking at this chart is going to see the inbound web line standing out as just performing significantly better than anything else in terms of its ability to generate quality targets that convert well at a high velocity. Now, I should point out, by the way, when I have a $0 per target for this channel, I'm not saying that we aren't spending any money, but it's money that goes into fixed expenses, like people's time and so on. And in this chart, I'm only showing variable program dollars spent. I'll come back to that point later. But regardless, it's clear that a good strategy is get as much of that quality inbound web stuff as possible. And so, that's something we're thinking about all the time at Marketo, and that comes by doing lots of content creation. It comes from doing great search engine optimization and social, organic social. And it's a key area where we've partnered with Captora to help generate more quality inbound for us. Paul gave a highlight a little bit of how we're doing that. But with Captora, we've created hundreds and hundreds of pages on our website, what Captora calls campaigns, optimized around very specific long-tail keywords that are words that we may not be getting traffic for otherwise. And by creating in an automated, scalable way these really specific optimized pages that are relevant to our buyers, we're able to get good quality ranking against these words, and that drives traffic to our site. Once the traffic's on the site, in some cases we put in hardcore conversion metrics and other, and hardcore conversions. Other places we are just using it more as an awareness builder at the top of the funnel. Right? But net, we're generating, literally thousands of incremental visits to our website each and every month, that are driving to these Captora pages that was traffic or quality organic traffic we wouldn't have otherwise. Captora can also be used for the competitive insight, as Paul talked about, to really understand what the other folks in our market are doing to create content, what's working, what's not working for content, and giving ideas for additional content creation. That way we can continually be finding ways to scale that incredibly important channel for us. So the net of that whole story is, inbound leads are really, really good, and you should do everything you can to scale it. But inbound by itself is not sufficient. If I were a stock picker and I put all my money in one stock, I'd have a bad portfolio. Just as similarly, if I'm a marketer and I put all my marketing in one channel, I have an insufficient marketing mix. And so at Marketo, we use all of these channels to generate quality targets that have different timelines, different risk profiles, and so on. Let's dive now into the fact that we've generated these targets, but in many cases, these targets are not yet ready to buy. We've met them just because they liked our content. Now, if all I had to do was get somebody's name, my job as a marketer would be easy. I could give my sales team the phone book and call it a day and go have drinks. But that's not what sales wants. Sales wants win-ready leads. And I need to somehow fill that gap between when I meet someone and when they're sales ready. And the reality is that gap is really big. According to Rain today, on average, only 25% of the new folks that you generate at your top of the funnel are considered sales ready when you first meet them. That's 25% is average across a bunch of different companies. At Marketo, it's only 2%. Because our top of the funnel is so wide and we're using so much thought leadership content to generate targets, we meet lots of people way before they're ready to buy. And of the 98% that aren't sales ready when we first meet them, It takes an average of 327 days, almost a year, between when we meet them and when we're going to pass them to a sales development rep. So how do we fill that gap? How do we keep in touch with people between when you meet them and when they're ready to buy? And that's what lead nurturing is all about, building relationships with these prospects, engaging them regardless of when they're ready to buy. Now, lead nurturing is a big topic, and we can talk about for a whole hour for that. In fact, I wrote a book on it called The Definitive Guide to Lead Nurturing, which you can get off our website, but don't do that because we're actually coming out with a new version in about 2 weeks, so stay tuned for that. But if I've summarized this entire book about how to do lead nurturing well into a single word, it's relevant. If you're not relevant, your audience will opt out, or more accurately, emotionally opt out, and just stop paying attention to you. And so how do you be relevant with your lead nurturing? Well, I think relevance really comes down to segmentation, making sure that you're talking to the right people for what's correct for their stage in the buying process. So I think it's important to segment your database, your nurture database, on 2 dimensions. Why 2 dimensions? Well, one's not enough, and every dimension you add after that is exponentially more complex. So to me, it feels like 2 ends up being the right balance for most companies. And the 2 dimensions, I think on one dimension is the buying stage. A early stage buyer doesn't care about my company or my product. We're just going to talk to them about how to be a better marketer. Whereas when people start entering into a buying cycle, we'll start not selling Marketo, but why do you need marketing automation? And we'll only start talking about who we are late in the process. The other dimension is who the person is, a persona or a buying profile or so on. And with the intersection of these two dimensions, that's where you're going to nurture people. This is what it looks like inside the Marketo tool, where we're looking at the marketing track here, and you see there's an early stage stream, a mid-stage stream, a late-stage stream. All we have to do is drag in the messages we want to send to people, and the system takes care of sending people the right message at the right time periodically. So that's at that point when somebody is, we're nurturing them, we send them off to sales, we run the sales cycle, hopefully we close the deal. But let me finish by, as I promised, spending some time really diving in more depth in the metrics and the analytics for how we do this. This is a topic that is near and dear to my heart, not just because it involves numbers and being a quant jock, but because I believe passionately that when marketers use the right metrics to measure and prove their impact on revenue, they stop being seen as a cost center. They stop being seen as the folks that throw parties and make color brochures, and they start being seen as a true peer and partner at the revenue table. And so measuring and proving your impact on revenue is very, very important. But it's hard. It's not as easy as it seems, and it's hard for 2 key reasons. The first is because on average it takes 7 interactions to turn a raw lead into a customer. And more important than that, it's across many people, right? So nobody becomes a customer because of just one trade show, or they attend one webinar. It's a whole interaction over time of many touches across many people. So to really measure and improve your impact on ROI, the first thing you've got to do is just be able to track all the interactions that happen across an account, from when you first meet somebody to when they become an opportunity to when you close the deal. What we're looking at here is a screenshot of the Marketo Revenue Cycle Analytics Opportunity Influence Analyzer. That's a mouthful. Where you see time on the bottom, the interactions across the top. Then you can see highlighted all the successful marketing touches we've had with an account over time. Now, there's 2 ways you can think about then allocating revenue across these touches. One way is to allocate it all to where you first met the people, using the lead source or first touch attribution. But I prefer what we call multi-touch attribution, where I can allocate those dollars evenly across all the successful interactions. And then to measure the ROI of a program, I can add up all the revenue that got allocated to it. So what does that look like for us? This is my favorite slide in the whole deck, because this is showing you the Marketo's ROI across various channels. So again, like before, you see the program channel that we're using across all the different marketing techniques. You see how much investment we put into those channels, again, using just marginal program dollars. Let me pause for a second and talk about the fact that I keep using the word investment and not cost. And this is a soapbox of mine because I believe as marketers, when we talk about things like cost and cost per lead, even like budgets and spending, we are communicating to the world that we are a cost center. But if we can use the word investment, right, and we say we make an investment in marketing and we have an investment per lead, now all of a sudden we're just subconsciously communicating to the world that obviously this is marketing something that you invest in. So finish soapbox. So we have how much we invest in each channel. Then you see how much pipeline and how many opportunities we are allocating to those channels using that multi-touch methodology I just talked about. Just as an interesting fun fact, if you add up all the pipeline that we create from channels that have 0 marketing program dollars, where it's essentially we're investing our brains and our effort as opposed to our dollars, that's 58% of our pipeline. So again, inbound really, really matters. It's really important. On the other hand, inbound is not sufficient by itself because if we only did inbound, we'd only be 60% of the company we are today. And so it's when these two work together, the brains and the budget, that you maximize your growth. The next column on the chart here is probably the single best metric, I think, to measure marketing success, and that is the golden ratio, essentially, of pipeline divided by investment. How many dollars the pipeline do you get for every $1 you invest in a marketing program? At Marketo, because the economics of our business, greater than 10 is what we're looking for. Under the sub 5 is clearly a failure. Anything in between is up for judgment. That doesn't necessarily mean this will be your metric. So you need to come up with what thresholds you're looking for your business. But for us, anything above 10 is great. And so you see, obviously, different channels perform differently for us, with paid webinars being perhaps the highest ROI thing that we can do. Incidentally, we see that across many of our customers as well. But it's not sufficient to look just at the average for a channel. You also need to dive into the last column here and look at the percentage of programs within that channel that achieve better than that minimum threshold of 5. Because trade shows are a perfect example. The average of trade show for us is 10.6, which is above our minimum. I mean, it's above, we're looking for that. So you would think trade shows are good. But then when you look on a trade by trade show basis, you see that effectively half our trade show money is wasted. In case we know which half, and so we can allocate our investment more and more into the programs that are working the best. So that's how we think about measuring ROI across channels. Coming back to the funnel, I'll make one last point, which is it's also important to track how your prospects and your deals move through the funnel over time. We can do that using the Marketo revenue cycle modeler. So this chart you're looking at exactly matches the funnel we just saw, where you see leads going from known to engaged to target to sales lead, et cetera. But you also see detours because not everybody always moves straight down a success path, if you will. You also see that some of these have clocks to represent there's a service level agreement on that stage. Once you have the system set up and the tool can track how people move through each stage over time, we can then go in and effectively get what I call Google Analytics but for revenue, where for each stage I can see 4 key metrics that matter. First of all, balance. Right? How many people do I have in that stage? The balance of unique targets that I have is a really important metric because essentially that's the pond that I'm fishing in to generate leads for my sales development team. And if I'm not growing that pond as fast as I need to grow my future revenue targets, I will effectively be overfishing the pond. It's important to track, is that balance of active targets going up? Flow is moving from stage to stage over time. Important metrics, not very easy to get out of an operational system like Salesforce. You need to have a database underneath with history to track flow. Once you have balance and flow, conversion velocity are pretty straightforward to get. And then you can understand all those metrics across different businesses. So these are some of our actual metrics for movement through the funnel. This is essentially a slightly updated version of the chart Paul showed a little bit earlier. And you can look at the percentages from stage to stage. What I want to really highlight for you is the conversion rates right there in the middle between MQL and SQL. This is what the conversion from the stuff that we send to the sales development reps to qualify to what actually gets passed forward over to the sales team. And the reason why that's the pinch point in the funnel. That's the lowest percentage here. The reason why is because on the left side, you want to be relatively loose about what you pass over to an SDR, because the cost of a false positive, identifying something as a lead that's not really a lead, that's not very expensive. It's just an SDR makes another phone call. But a false negative, missing out on a lead that actually is a lead, that's extraordinarily expensive. You miss out on a deal. And because of that ratio, the false positive, false negative, be loose about what you send to your SDRs. So we end up passing a lot to our sales development team. On the other hand, you want to be really stingy about what actually gets qualified and sent to a salesperson. The reason for that is because imagine if less than half the stuff you send to your salesperson ends up being good. So you have 50% for something. What you're effectively teaching your sales team there is that when their SDR comes to them, it may or not be worth their time. But when you can get 75%, where 75% of your SQLs are actually good, now that salesperson knows that when their SDR comes to them, it's going to be good. If you're loose on the left side and you're stingy on the right side, and then you're very tight on what you pass over, you have to have that pinch point right in the middle. And that's why you see only a 2% conversion from MQL to SQL. But my final point is that once you have a good understanding of how your leads and accounts move through your funnel over time, you can use that data to start making predictions, not about what will happen in the future. So essentially, how much pipeline will I create next month and the month after that and the month after that? So I can make a pipeline forecast just like sales makes a sales forecast or a revenue forecast. This, what we're looking at here, is a nice waterfall way to represent your forecast so people can see the trend of that data over time. When you can do this as a marketer, right, when you can make a revenue or a pipeline forecast that is trusted by the organization, you will truly earn a seat at the revenue table and be respected as part of your sales team. And that's what we aspire to here at Marketo. If you want to follow up with me, I am at John Miller. I look forward to the question and answer time. So with that, I will hand things back to Paul.
Great. Thank you very much, John. Very inspiring discussion as always. And just to reiterate on John's point, at Marketo, when he and I were working together, we had a weekly sales and marketing forecast meeting. And in that meeting, marketing would start by talking about how much pipeline was created. And it all starts with that chart that John just showed. Here's another example. And we would use this in our board meetings as well. So knowing how much revenue is needed to beat the board plan in the future and what your sales cycle looks like and what your average deal size looks like for the different parts of your business, you can work backwards to figure out how many opportunities does marketing need to create then in each business area by month to beat the revenue targets. From there, you work backwards in the funnel to go to, okay, then how many qualified leads do I have to have? How many total leads, how many contacts, and how many programs, and what should my spend level be? So that's what I was referring to earlier as working outside in to your marketing plan. And if you can get to the point of having this kind of a report, you'll be leading your market. There are very few companies today that are at that level of detail, and that's what I would recommend that you strive to get to, starting with how many opportunities per month will beat your plan. And then that gets you that seat at the revenue table clearly. We talked about the case study at Marketo, so I won't spend a lot of time talking about how Marketo leverages Captora. The key was to focus on the top of funnel. They leveraged Captora in order to generate a lot of new campaigns at a improved cost per lead. And then we tracked that and report monthly, quarterly, so that they're growing pipeline with Captora faster than the overall company is. So what I wanted to do is make sure that we've got plenty of time for Q&A. I've been answering a few of the questions online, but I'll hand back over to Sandra. I think we've allotted about 10 minutes or more for questions and answers, and appreciate all the chatting that's going on. A lot of engaged people out there, so I want to make sure we've got enough time to answer all those good questions. So Sandra?
Yeah, great. Thank you. We do have a lot of questions coming in. I also have a little gift for everybody. Earlier John said that the lead nurturing guide, the new version, isn't coming out for 2 weeks. We actually, Marketo will be launching that tomorrow. So everybody on this call will get a follow-up from Captora with a link to the replay and a link to the slides. So you'll get that. And then you'll also get the link that John was referring to with the new Lead Nurturing Definitive Guide.
So once again, overachieving expectations, huh?
There you go. Yeah. Okay, great. So I have a question for John. This is from Kathleen. Any tips on how to balance your be stingy with what is sent to sales versus the push by management to deliver more leads? So Kathleen says, we operate in a narrowly defined market with under 10,000 prospects, not hundreds of thousands. Do you have any suggestions?
Yeah, well, I think there's an assumption made in that where I'm assuming there is a lead qualification team or sales development team that sits between your marketing lead gen and your quota-bearing sales reps. In that case, send lots of leads to the lead qualification team. Send as many as it makes sense. Make sure those folks are on the phone all day long, calling as many people as possible. But then just make sure you're not wasting your expensive salesperson's time calling people who aren't ready to talk to actually a salesperson. So I'm a big fan of having that intermediate function no matter what your business is. Now, if you have a very small target market, arguably your sales team will have relationships with lots of people, and they should be talking to their target buyers even earlier in the sales process. But again, it's all about making sure the salespeople are spending their time talking to people who actually want to talk to them, and then having your sales development team in the middle being the one sort of loosely calling as many people as it makes sense. Hopefully that answers the question.
Okay, great. Yeah, thanks. And then, Paul, we had some questions early on when you were referring to some different metrics, one being CAC, also some of the different programs and how to figure out what to invest in. So if you could kind of go over those two general groups of questions, some top measurements people should worry about, and programs, buckets of programs to invest in.
Sure. So CAC is the cost of new customer acquisition. So the math behind that is to take the total cost of marketing spend, headcount as well as program dollars that's focused on new customer acquisition versus upsell versus renewal, and then add the total cost of sales as well for new customer acquisition, and then divide that into the total new ARR, and then that'll get you the right ratio. The key to leveraging CAC as a metric is consistency. I've seen different definitions out there, and happy to share the math if anybody wants to follow up via email or whatever too. But the math is frankly less important than consistency. You want to benchmark your CAC versus others. So as long as you're using the same math for your CAC as other companies you're comparing to, you're good. But I've seen at least 3 or 4 different definitions out there. That's the one that I've used. So that's an important metric, less for your marketing team or your sales team, much more for CFO, CEO, and your board, because that, I guarantee you, especially in a software as a service, cloud computing type model, 100% of the board folks and investors are looking at CAC. So that's the CAC piece. I know there's some questions out there around the spread of MQL and SQL around complex and big ticket sales. I'll give you an example. One of our customers has an average deal size of $250K and a 12-month sales cycle. And I think the difference in that kind of a model versus a company that has a less than $10,000 product and 30-day sales cycle is the way that you treat your leads. In a higher price, longer sales cycle, you want to get hands-on. You want your SDRs to be interacting at an earlier phase with the higher priced items, and probably handing off to your AEs at an earlier stage as well. What we learned in the past is that if you're in a big or complex sale versus high velocity sale, inbound marketing is as critical. For example, I know when I was at Marketo, about 70% of the enterprise folks, where the average deal size was around 150 to 200K, about 70% was coming from inbound at the beginning. Over time, we went more to outbound, whereas in the high velocity part of the business, it was about 80% that was inbound. So it'll still be important. I think the big difference is the SLAs, that you want to watch your scoring and your nurturing tracks, because you're probably going to move the prospect faster to SDRs and faster to the AE, because the account exec or the sales rep is going to be spending more time with the higher ticketed item. But the fundamentals that we talked about today will work very well in complex, longer sales cycles. And the key is that if you have a complex sales cycle or longer sales cycle, learning to do a better job of digital marketing and leveraging your content to engage prospects earlier, because those prospects are worth a lot more, you'll beat your competition much more aggressively in that kind of a model versus high velocity, where I think more of your competitors are already doing content-driven modern digital marketing, whereas in more of these enterprise-specific companies, I see a lot less of it today. So it could be a huge competitive advantage.
Great. And in addition to the complex sale, I think Jonathan's question here relates, like, how do we scale these strategies for smaller companies?
So I'll take that.
Yep.
Yeah, I'll take that. I think that's, well, I guess if we could verify, the question is it asking about I am a smaller company or I'm targeting smaller companies?
Yeah, he's with a smaller company, less than 50 people.
Okay, I still think that the question may be a little ambiguous in terms of which one, but I'll assume that you are a small company and you are trying to scale some of these strategies. Well, I think that that's exactly where content is so exciting. I mean, if you're a small company, you have no chance in whatever to possibly buy a $4.5 million Super Bowl ad, let alone kind of use a lot of the tactics and techniques that the big guys use, like major booths at trade shows and so on. But you've got brains. And in many ways, a small company has a competitive advantage at producing content versus a big company, because there's just something about being more nimble that lets you create, I think, compelling content that resonates with buyers. If not better, certainly faster. And so create content and interact with your target personas, and create a brand where people want to be associated with you because of the fun and the quality that you're putting out. And I don't care if you're big or small, if you're doing a good job of targeting your persona, the right people will find you in a way that will really scale.
Great. And the follow-on question, this is from Danny. When you were talking about multi-touch, how do you know how much credit to assign to each touch, or do you assign the full pipeline value to each touch?
Sure, good question. The way we do it at Marketo is we split the value evenly across all the successful touches. So if you attend the webinar, then that's a success, and we'll give some credit there. But if you just registered but didn't attend, we won't say that was a success. So once you've defined all the number of successes, then it's a simple division problem. Let's just say it's a $100,000 deal and there are 4 successes. We'll evenly give each one $25,000. Now, you could argue, no, that doesn't make sense. You should give more credit to the last one, or you should give more credit to the in-person event than the online event. And that's fine. And you could argue that, you could argue any of those. What I like about even is that you can't argue against it specifically. It's imperfect, but it's imperfect in a way that I'm not introducing judgment or bias. And so it works well, at least in my view, for decision making.
I'll comment real quick on the small company question too, because we're working with a number of companies that have less than 100 employees, some down to 50. I think as long as the type of product you're selling is a considered purchase, meaning that it'll take a new buyer multiple steps to consider buying your product versus somebody else's. Content is important, and form fill is a way that you capture their information. Then you should be going through the processes we talked about here. One of our customers we were just up doing a case study video with last week, 83 employees, and they're leveraging Captora across paid and organic search. They've launched over 200 organic campaigns in the first less than 4 months of working together, and they've already seen a closed deal, and they've got tremendous amount of new pipeline. What was interesting, though, most interesting is that on the organic side of this, already within 4 months, they saw a conversion rate lift where they're at 9.5% conversion rate. Now, the important thing there is to know more about your market. If you're a small company in a more mature market, then I think you'll see a higher conversion rate of organic campaigns than you will if you're creating a new market, because the terms will be more mature, there'll be more people searching for it, and then you'll start to appear in the mix, and you'll see conversion rates higher. The other point I wanted to bring up is on paid search, that the earlier that you start with creating efficiency on your paid search strategy, and we usually see customers leveraging LinkedIn as well as Google AdWords and sponsored links also, the more that you can figure out what AdWords are doing well for you, and you can spin up new organic campaigns to find key new words that maybe you're not buying today. That can help to drive your paid search strategy to go acquire new keywords that become important before your competitors see it, and start to think about working across the different channels as well. So just a couple of other things to think about as I think digital marketing becomes much more cross-channel focused than it has been historically.
Hey, and we have a ooh-ah question, I think. This is from Chaz. People like DM News say the traditional funnel is dead. What are your comments on that?
This is John. I just had to finish my mute there for a second. That's certainly a good headline, and so I'm not surprised that you have publications saying that. I think that that's usually said in the context of the buyer's journey and a nonlinear buyer's journey that's sort of constantly cycling between different levels of awareness and whatnot. But go back to the revenue cycle model I showed you, right? I had there something that took our quote-unquote traditional funnel and then mapped it to a success path that also had detours, right, where things looped around. And that works perfectly fine. And the point being, the buyer has a journey, and then the funnel is just a model or an approximation that you can apply on top of that to measure deepening engagement and deepening depth of relationship with that buyer as they're going through this journey. So, as long as you understand that there's two concepts there, right, I think that, and that buyers don't linearly move straight from one end to the other, that the two models can coexist very peacefully.
Great, and it's top of the hour. Any last wrap-up from
Well, first I wanted to thank
Gallery?
John. Thank John for participating. It's great to be in the same conference room together again. And for everybody that dialed in for the call, great participation and a lot of engaging chatting going on and questions. So clearly a hot topic, a lot more to be said, and look forward to following up with any and all of you, and hope to see you again on a future webinar.
Yes, absolutely. Thank everyone for attending today, and you'll definitely receive a copy of the replay and the slides, and as mentioned, the Lead Nurturing Guide, which comes out tomorrow. So thanks to everyone, and have a really great day.